Hello folks. Behind us, that looks like a familiar type of building we've seen in videos past. That's right, we're at a Capitol building on our grand tour through our Appalachian adventure. We're continuing our little stint into West Virginia. Well, if you can combine Capitol building and West Virginia, you'll understand that we are now at the capital of West Virginia, the mountain state. Welcome to Charleston.
If you look right over there, see a statue of Stonewall Jackson.
Stonewall Jackson.
He is from the south, and he is facing south.
Okay.
That corner, you will find the statue to the northern soldiers.
Yeah.
They are facing Stonewall Jackson.
I see.
And Abraham Lincoln stands in the middle, head bowed. His two sons are fighting.
That is so interesting. Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Isn't that so cool? When you get to a certain part or a region of this great country, the people are a lot more friendly. Compared to the New England trip we had, everybody's willing to have open conversations. I mean, just like that, there were people in a car who wanted to make a fun noise. But yeah, people are a lot more friendly here. I mean, just before I started filming, there was a guy, as soon as I parked, who said, "Oh, you don't have to park here. No parking on weekends." And that was great, I was glad. But then he, went out of his way to tell me, "Oh, here are all the interesting things you can do here in the capital, Charleston." And it's just a different vibe here. I thought it was gonna be, just people working for the government, just doing their own thing. But no, people here in Charleston, the capital, are just as friendly as everywhere else in West Virginia. I also thought nobody was gonna be out here because West Virginia is a very religious state, and here on Sunday morning, they're all gonna be at church, so that's what I assumed. Apparently, I was wrong. People are out and about just as if it was any other day. So, what do we think of the West Virginia State Capitol building? Clearly, they put a lot of effort to make sure this Capitol building looked spectacular. Look at the gold dome. Just so ornate. You have all these finely designed pieces of stone put together to make this grand complex. And there's a nice waterfall too. Like I said, it's Sunday, so there is no chance I'm getting inside this building. But that doesn't mean we can't walk around and see what this complex is all about. So as that guy who ran into me said, there is a statue right up ahead of Stonewall Jackson. West Virginia was made a state in the first place to get away from the Confederacy, to split off because culturally they were just incompatible. Virginia was more agrarian and culturally southern, while West Virginia was very isolated in the mountains, and there weren't so many farms as Virginia. So they sided more with the Union, and here is that statue of Stonewall Jackson, a general for the Confederacy. And he's looking south, I think, that's what he said. I always think it's a good idea when traveling to know a little bit about the history of the place, a little background, so you're a bit more familiar and it's not just some foreign experience when you go to a place for the first time. Yeah, this is a beautiful Capitol complex. For those of you following along on these Capitol videos, I make a good effort when I travel to a new state or a state I haven't really visited all too well to go to the Capitol, because it's just fun to see how many capital cities you can go to in America. There are 50, so I try to make a good effort to go to as many as I can. We're definitely higher than 10 capitals at this point. Maybe this is capital number 11, 12, 13, I don't know. And look at this. Right behind this grand Capitol building, there's a quaint little river. This is the Kanawha River. You could say this is Virginia's main waterway because of the size of it. It's the largest river in West Virginia. This area was highly contested during the time of the Native Americans, and after European settlement, the region surrounding this area became very industrialized, and this became one of the most urbanized parts of West Virginia. For such a frontier state, that means something. And of course, that means now that you see all these buildings and houses all across the banks of this Kanawha River. This river became so important to West Virginian culture that when the state was being formed and it split away from Virginia, one of the highly contested names, a real big candidate for the naming of West Virginia, was Kanawha. Ultimately, that wasn't the name, and they stuck with West Virginia. But you can see that this river still holds tremendous importance. But of course, like any capital city in America, it's not just the Capitol building or the adjacent river. There's still a large city. So without further ado, let's explore the downtown area of the Mountain State's largest city. As we travel down to this part of West Virginia, you start to hear different accents. For one, you start to hear this Appalachian accent. Although, yes, it sounds similar to like a southern accent, it's a bit different. It's like an Appalachian exclusive accent that you'd only hear in the inland South. Oh yes, this is what the guy recommended I go to. Apparently it's a local thing. Alright, you already know we eat in weird places, don't need to explain that, but I want to explain a bit about Tudor's Biscuit World. I had no idea this place existed until today when I was told by that guy before I started filming that this was a local thing. Only in West Virginia and maybe surrounding states can you go and get biscuits from Tudor's Biscuit World. And from my time here, the vibe of the place is like a normal fast food restaurant where you might get your burgers and fries, but instead of burgers and fries, you get country biscuits and down-home cooking. And I really like that. You could get all sorts of biscuits. So what would I get here at Tudor's Biscuit World to really represent this part of West Virginia? Well, one, before I even got something to eat, I got some sweet tea. I don't know if you can consider Charleston, West Virginia, or this region of West Virginia part of the South, but all over the South, people love their sweet tea, so I can't really get sweet tea up in the North. I indulged myself in some sweet tea. I asked for a cup. This is a huge cup. And of course, at Tudor's Biscuit World, I had to get a biscuit. Now, it's kind of like a burger. It's the size of a burger, but you replace the bun and the meat and the lettuce and tomato with country ham, cheese, hash browns, and top it all up with a biscuit. So yeah, let's see if it's worth all the hype and praise that I've been hearing. Here goes, the Mountaineer biscuit from Tudor's Biscuit World. I made a good choice today. That was the best thing I've had in weeks. It's just so savory from the hash brown, and then the country ham also gives it a salty flavor. We've tried country ham in Virginia, but when you top it all off with a biscuit, oh, it completes it. It's a full meal. All right, folks, I'll see you in a bit. I got a full country biscuit to enjoy. To feasting like a true Appalachian. Charleston is now the capital of West Virginia. It wasn't always the capital of West Virginia. The city of Wheeling, which we have been to, not once, but I think a couple times, has the distinction of being the first capital, and Wheeling is located at that northern panhandle. Right now we're in sort of like, I don't know what you would call it, southwestern Virginia. A region called the Metro Valley is home to having the modern, current capital of West Virginia, which is Charleston, where we are right now. Well, I think it's safe to say that now we are finally in the downtown area of Charleston, West Virginia. Due to the geography of this location, due to the surrounding mountainscapes, this city's layout is rather oblong and narrow because you can't really build an urban area if it's not so flat. Sure, you can try, but it's not going to work out so well with these huge mountains all around you. And for the same reason, although we're very close to states like Kentucky and Ohio, it may take a little longer to get there with all the curves on the roads and highways to get there. So now we head to a different type of attraction here in Charleston. If you just want to have a relaxing day of shopping, eating, and chatting, well, you certainly can do so. Right here, as that sign says, Shop, Eat, Chat at the Capitol Market. Let's see what is inside. Charleston, West Virginia is essentially if West Virginia had this cultural epicenter, so it only makes sense that farms all across the state, if there are any farms in the mountains, or places that are just cosmopolitan in culture, would have shops here at this Capitol Market. Oh my goodness, what is this ancient relic doing? Gee, I wonder what use this machine had in store for people back in the olden days of... I don't know, I can't do this anymore. This is a payphone. Something you don't see anymore, I guess. Isn't it nice how we could just walk around, not having to dodge the cars coming this way and that way? I think this happens on weekends, and that's a day of which it is today. Today's Sunday, so we don't have to worry about cars. Oh, and there's the Charleston clock. West Virginia has historically been known by the land of pioneers and frontiersmen. Sometimes, though, not the pioneers you would be thinking of. Right here in Charleston stands a monument, or as they call, a museum, dedicated to a pioneer of the fast food industry. If you've been around the block long enough, you might have heard of these big boy restaurants. You know, the statue of this little guy, even though he's a big boy. That statue, a lot larger, would be in the front of all these different restaurants across America. This was a shining example of one of the first successful franchises in fast food. What started as the Parquet Drive-In, it was later named Shoney's Big Boy, and after a lot of business negotiations that I don't understand, you would have these restaurants all with the Big Boy statue in front of it. At its accumulative peak, the Big Boy franchise, owned by different regional chains, grossed almost 2,000 restaurants. Nowadays, you might not see as many Big Boy restaurants as in previous decades, but the Big Boy franchise still stands as one of those pioneer chains, franchises, businesses, whatever you want to call it, in the fast food market. And they call this a museum, but it's really just a small little memorial, I guess. But it's another one of those things that you can find here in Charleston, West Virginia. So I decided to come here to end the video off, just on a fun little happy note. So yeah, that was Charleston, West Virginia, capital of the Mountain State. I hope you all enjoyed our day through this wondrous city. We still have a bit more of West Virginia to cover. I'll keep that a secret for now, but then after that, we're gonna continue going south on our Appalachian adventure. The locations continue not to stop. Standing here in front of the site of the original Parquet Drive-In and now the Shoney's Big Boy Museum here in Charleston, West Virginia. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location. Bye-bye, big boy.